Welcome to episode 3.
Yes, GM.
GM. You know, I was thinking about that GM thing. I think it should be MG.
Why?
Well, you were the instigator of the podcast, right?
But GM sounds better. It's good morning.
It's General Motors.
Could stand for many things.
Okay, preference. You played footsie with me already. Come on, man, it's 9:30. It's 9:32. Okay, how's the week been?
Good.
Great.
This
So
is
that
my
was
general response.
it's a good week.
Yeah. Got a new air fryer.
Okay.
Replaced the old one.
Hang on a minute, you can't start with that. That's like, now you've maxed out, you've got a new air fryer. Walk us through your air fryer purchase.
Well, it was a tough decision.
Why?
There's so many different brands out there. They're all around the same price point. So you're like, okay, should I go for a name brand like Philips or Tefal for double the price? Or does it really matter?
I mean, it does the same thing, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Air fries.
Yeah. So yeah, just go with whatever that's mid-tier.
Mm-hmm.
Can never go wrong with anything that's right in the middle.
Of course.
Sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you go for? What's the literage and what's the brand?
It's 4.5 liters. The size so it could fit my head in the basket.
Did you try? Was that the measure?
It looks like it'll fit my head. Yeah, it's Gabor. Apparently, it's made in. It's a German brand.
Who sold this?
Sure.
Who sold this to you?
It's on Shopee.
Okay. Okay. Shopee
Yeah.
sold it to you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just decided to go with that because all the other ones were either like someone just slapped on their own brand and like, oh yeah, it's Panasonic, but actually it's not Panasonic. It's OEM.
Fair.
So yeah, whatever.
So it sounds like a good week
Yeah.
then. That was like, is that been the peak of your week? Mind you, it's only Wednesday.
No, we're peaking right now
Is it?
with this podcast.
We are. No one else is. So we are starting a bit late today.
We are. You wanna?
Should we talk about why we're starting a bit late today?
Yeah. You wanna walk us through your morning?
I wanted to know what it was like to crash a road bike. So I did it with high intent, going round a corner. And you can't even tell me if it looked cool or not, which is pretty disappointing. So yes, I hit the floor at some sort of, I want to say it's speed. My head ricocheted off the floor. The one thing about it though was, the only thing that was going through my mind as I was crashing the bike was, I sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger from Total Recall. Because when my head hit the floor, it was like, and I was like, and then that was it. And then I'm still, you said I hit on the left, but then I've got some damage on the, I don't know how I've like busted up my right ankle. If I fell on the left, did I commando roll out of it?
Yeah.
I was lucky I didn't get hit by a car, to be fair. Those cars behind us were pretty like, oh, hey, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just on the floor, man. Hey, relax. So yes, we are a bit late, sorry. I suppose it happens. I'm part of the club now. It's taken me just over a year to crash.
Your life flashed before your eyes, or really you just blanked out?
I think I should be concerned about Arnold Schwarzenegger flashing before my eyes and the comedic timing of that thought. Anyway, there we go. So we're a bit late. Sorry about that.
No problem. Better late than never.
Wow. Now I understand. Now I understand. But yes, I put my Decathlon Van Rysel helmet to the test. And that motherfucking thing was a beast because, yeah, my head hit the floor pretty hard. And I don't even have a headache, which is good. So if I start slurring in about 2 minutes, please take me to the hospital.
Okay, yeah, I will.
Okay, not on the bike.
Yeah. Strap on. Ride with your helmets on, kids.
Okay. Yes, please wear protective gear. And also, I used to ride motorbikes quite a bit. And it didn't matter where I was going, I would always put gloves on. Because when you fall, the first thing that goes down is your hands.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't wear gloves on my road bike. And this is what happens. Look at this. This is what happens. You mess yourself up. And it was good that it was raining in the sense that I slid rather than getting kind of gravel and dirt and like everything ripped off me. So it was bad it was raining because I fell. It was good it was raining because I fell. So I slid. Anyway, air fryers and falls. Good way to start. What else has been happening? What do you want to talk about?
Well, we have some topics.
I know. Has anything come? I know we've got some topics. Is there anything like top of mind right now? And like, actually, I want to talk about that.
So with the fall, I mean, just thinking about as I was writing over here, I was thinking about like danger and fear.
Okay.
And how, as humans, we're programmed to see. We're programmed to think about fear when there's no danger. So let me try to differentiate danger versus fear. I read this somewhere. I can't remember where. It's been a while.
I mean,
so danger is something that is an actual threat to your life, or a situation like a wet, slippery road. That's danger, right?
Not to me. It's not. It's an opportunity.
So that's danger.
Yeah.
Right. It's an evident threat.
Yeah.
Fear is something that's not there. It's probably just in your head. So after this crash, probably every corner that you take, there might not be danger, but you might have that fear, or some people call it trauma, that, oh, what if I crash again?
Are you kind of like now, are you embedding this into me? So now every time I go into a corner, I've got to think about you, and it's like, there's no danger. It's just my internal fear, so I'm fine.
I mean, you need to assess if there's actual danger, right? So for me, when I first crashed, similar, I slid on a wet road.
Were you cornering, or were you just...
I was cornering, exactly. Going too fast, like most men do, trying to go fast on the corner. But yeah, and after that experience...
Sorry, I twisted. Sorry.
Yeah, after that experience, every corner... It took a while to let that fear subside and actually assess, is there really danger, right? I think it's beyond that as well. I think a lot of times when we look at life, is there actual danger, or is it just fear? I think we need to kind of like stop and assess a lot of things that we do. Is it really dangerous, or is it fear that's telling us not to do it?
I'm going to counter that. There's a great book I read by a guy. It's so funny. I'm going to try and find it now, and I'm not going to be able to find it, am I? But he used to train. He would only train the top of the top athletes. You know this guy. You know, I think he.
David Grover, Relentless.
Yes. Is that it? With the sweepers.
Mm-hmm. The cleaners.
The cleaners.
Yeah.
The closers, the cleaners,
Yeah.
and there's one other one as well. I can't remember it. One thing that stuck to me on that, or stuck with me about that, don't think. So the more we think and assess, we get into this world of analysis paralysis. So if we do stop and think, if there is actually danger, are we going to set ourselves up for limited progress? Because in ourselves, like we might be like, oh, there is danger here. Danger to the ego, danger to us. Maybe psychologically, I don't know. Should we really stop and assess? Or just don't think, just do?
Well, I think in today's world, most of the things that's stopping us really isn't danger. If you think about danger, it's like it's a threat to your life, right?
Yeah.
These days, 90% of things are not a threat to your life. Like if you make a wrong purchase, that's not a threat to your life. If you make like buying an air fryer, that's not. I mean, I have that fear. Oh, what if I make a wrong purchase?
Yes.
Right? But really, is there really danger? Okay, maybe there is if it's poorly made and it explodes in my face. Possibly. But what are the chances of that happening? And if it does happen, okay, is it really, like, how bad could it be, right? So...
Yeah, I think the likelihood of that kind of stuff happening is pretty low. I suppose.
But coming to, I'm not sure if you've heard of Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
Black
Black
Swan.
Swan.
Yeah.
So
Was that Anti-Fragile as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Haven't read that yet. I'm presuming you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell me all about it.
But he mentioned it's not just the probability, right? Like a probability of black swan is very, very low. But when it does happen, you got to consider the impact.
Right.
How catastrophic it might be.
Okay.
Right. So anyway, I guess there's just no one right answer, but coming to the point about danger and fear, most of the things in our lives are just not dangerous, right? Like for me, I'm thinking about, okay, I want to move to a place that's closer to the office, for example.
Okay.
A fear that's holding me back is, what if I commit to this lease or this 12-month thing or 24 months thing, and you never know what could happen, right?
This is true.
And you're stuck here. But is that really a threat to you? Is that danger, or is that really just fear? So that's what's been on my mind.
So since being in Malaysia, I've moved around quite a bit. And so I've been through this as well. So this is an interesting thing about sales. People have this analysis paralysis or this fear of making a decision because they think it's a finite decision. If I do this, it's going to be I decide to do this, it's going to be this forever.
Right.
So if I make this move to the office, it's going to be this forever. Or if I decide to relocate or whatever it is, it's going to be, oh my God, what will happen? Well, realistically, not a lot. So the literal downside, because when I moved over to Malaysia, I was 24 when I moved here, and there was two things that was really going to happen. So I land in Malaysia and I start my job, and I'm terrible at it, and I get fired. And then I had to go home, and there's two other options: go home or stay here and find another job. Or I come over here and I start my job and I'm okay at it and I do well and I end up staying and doing something with my career or my life. Either way, overthinking what would happen is just going to stop us from making a decision. So what's the point? It's there are going to be options that will present themselves, or you create for yourself whatever decision you actually make. So, for example, when you're moving house, what's the downside? We moved from Tamantung over to Bangsar. If we moved here and we didn't like it for whatever reason, then you sign up for a 1+1. If it's really, really terrible or something catastrophic actually happens, then you leave. And then you forfeit your deposit. But it's still an option, but you just lose the deposit that you put down. But then if something really catastrophic happens, which forces you to make a rash decision or something that is out of the ordinary, then the deposit doesn't matter because you're too worried about this other monumental thing that happens.
Right.
And by the way, with a lot of this stuff, you're dealing with people as well. So you're dealing with either agents or owners, and then you call them and be like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening, can we work something out? And you work something out because you're dealing with human beings. So when Els moved in with me in my previous place, so she broke her lease, and because it was during the pandemic, and we were trying to spend some time together and all this kind of stuff. So when she moved in, before moving, we just called the landlady and were going to be moving out. If we help you, try and find someone else to kind of move in, can we get the deposit back if it's in a period of time? She's like, yeah. Because the rent continues. The landlady doesn't have to worry about anything, so it's all kind of taken care of. So whilst it's written down in a legal contract, there's always ways to have conversations with people about making life easier. So I suppose it's putting yourself in the other person's shoes as well. What makes their life easier? It's interesting, this one, because this is essentially the sales thing, the psychology of sales. If I do this, what will happen next? It's the fear of making that decision because oh my God, I've made this decision. And then you get this buyer's, have you heard of buyer's remorse? Have I made the right decision? Should I have done this? That's why in kind of insurance and all this kind of stuff, you have this cooling off period where it's okay, the dust has settled, the emotions are down, you can actually make a rational choice. That's why speaking with clients, having good client success, having good handovers, creating a good experience is all part of the sales process.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as somebody says yes, it's not the end of like a sale.
Right.
It's kind of the start of a relationship, and you need to be there for the client or for your customer to work with them. To put yourself in their shoes, it's a really, sometimes it can be a tough decision to make because there's opportunity cost, and say, if I invest in this, then I'm missing out on this. Yeah. That's why empathy is a big thing, because you really need to put yourself in their shoes and be like, okay, you're going to be working with me or doing this thing with me. How are you going to feel after you sign off on this? Put yourself in their shoes. How are they going to feel a week later or a month later? So that's why I was such a big believer in client success and working with customers, because when somebody says yes to you, when they buy something, it can be a big decision for them to make, and they're going to be scared because it's breaking the status quo.
Yeah.
And it's that fear of making that choice. Anyway, I've noticed on the previous recordings that I talk too much, so I'm going to shut up, and I want you to talk. So I'm going to have to ask you even more questions.
Sure.
It's going to be a full-on interrogation. We're going to do 5 why stuff. Okay.
Anyway, yes. Coming back to dealing with people, right?
Yeah.
I think just reflecting on my kind of like thought process about buying something like a huge purchase and working in client success as well. I think people want to know that. So I mean, coming back to options, when you and analysis paralysis, when you have too many options, you're like, okay, what is the best option, right? And if I pick this option, what if it's not the best option? I have all the others. I should have picked B instead of A. I think it comes down to like people just need to commit essentially, like to just one thing. I think this like Hicks law or something. When you have more than 3 or 5 options, it doesn't matter anymore. You should just look at the first 3 or first 5. And I think for people to be comfortable with the decision that they've made, really it's you mentioned about dealing with people. It's building their relationship. People want to know that, hey, you're here as a partner. Like if I, sign a lease with my landlord, I want to know like, hey, I'll be taken care of no matter what, right? And we're in this together. Like it's a relationship. It's a partnership, right? You're not just selling me this house or this place, and when I need help, you're like, oh yeah, no, it's just purely transactional.
Yeah.
I think that's what people get scared of. And when you invest in relationships, that's where trust is built.
Yeah.
And people get comfortable with like, or really they have the confidence in like, okay, this is going to work out, right? People want to be assured that, hey, you're investing in this relationship. I think that's very important, like investing the time and just being there, especially in the beginning stages of a big deal or a big purchase. Like if you bought a car, it always makes sense to just check in a week or later. Hey, how's the car?
Yeah,
everything running fine? Anything that are you shopping for like tinting or modifications to your car? Anything that's not working well? It always makes sense to check in, right? Not to sell more stuff, but really just say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
So
when was the last time you made a purchase where you actually felt really good, like after the purchase, where the other person's been like checking in, following up, doing that nurture thing or anything like that? Have you ever had that experience?
Unfortunately, no.
How sad is that? How sad is that? I mean, that's why I like kind of the things that I do. But I don't want to talk about me. What about a time where you've bought something and you felt like it's a transaction? Like as soon as you said yes to something, the salesperson or whatever it is in the wind. They've gone never to be seen again. Have you had that happen to you?
I can't remember when was the last time I made a purchase like in a physical store. Most of the times you buy stuff online, right? These days, like you just get it shipped. Shopee, e-commerce sites. It's becoming purely transactional.
Is that a good thing?
For daily essentials like toilet paper, yes, maybe, I guess. But for things that last a long time, like for example, like a MacBook, I would appreciate if, even if I bought it through Apple online, if they just called up and say, hey, I noticed you bought this, you've activated this, how's it going? You need any help setting things up? I think they used to do that.
Did they?
I'm not sure. I read somewhere. You don't get that these days anymore, right? I'm just thinking like what when you're talking about word of mouth, for example, what really gets people to talk about a particular product or a service? It's really that personal attention that they get. Like they feel like, hey, I made the right purchase. Like I'm treated right as a customer.
Yeah.
Rather than I'm just a customer. But no, you are a customer that we really value.
There's a couple of things on this one. The first one is delivering happiness. Have you read it?
I have not. I know I should.
You should. You should read it. And obviously, in this situation, the author of that book and the founder of Zappos, I can't remember his name. What's his name?
Tony Xie.
Thank you. So he was big on this idea of customer service as well, right? And so, because sometimes when we talk about kind of customer service or client success or account management and building relationships and talking to people can be seen as a nice to have. And this is a weird thing as well, right? During the pandemic or during this time where we're going through this, people call it recession, some people are heading towards a recession, whatever it is, there's just been this like big focus on client success. It's like, oh my God, we need to like ensure retention and talk to our customers. And it fucking blows my mind that it's now. Like what? It's so much cheaper to acquire revenue, if you want to be just black and white about it, from existing customers and existing relationships that you have than going out and hunting for new business. It's just a more efficient way to grow a business. And it always surprised me that there's always this over-indexing on kind of hunting for sales. Yes, growing market share is important. I believe in that. Yes, I do. I'm a salesperson. I'm an SDR. I like cold calling. I love it. But when you look at a business, you're like, okay, what's your churn? How are you managing your customers? When was the last time you spoke to these customers or this client? And a lot of times they don't have this kind of follow-up. It's like, why not? So literally, if you want to talk about low-hanging fruit, it's there. So once you start to build these relationships with people, it becomes, I think we spoke about this, can you pick up the phone and just simply WhatsApp an existing customer like, hey mate, how's it going? Or what's been going on this week? Without an agenda to try and sell something, to find out how they're actually getting on, to share something that might be relevant to them. If you can't, then there's a problem because they're not really a customer, they're just there for a transaction to make sure that your revenue keeps ticking over. So working with a client at the moment, and their renewal process is the person will get in touch once a year. And that's their client success. It's like, how is that client success? It's not. It's just a transaction. You can automate that. Send an email like 3 weeks out. So yes, nowadays like this idea of having customer or client success front and center, it does make sense. It's good for business. It's good for the buyer-seller relationship. It just is. And then talking about Tony Xie and Zappos, that's what they had. They had their customer service number, telephone number front and center, and that's how they built their business.
Yeah.
And they sold it for $1 billion to Amazon, right? So it's not like it's bad for business and it's nice to have. You can actually make something of it. Anyway, yes, there was something else I wanted to kind of talk about on that, but I forget.
What is it? Oh.
I don't know. What were we talking about? Client success.
Talk about investing in relationships.
I don't know. Probably not that important. It'll come back to me later. It's alright. It's fine.
I know you wanted to talk about over-reliance. Why is there an over-reliance on management for salespeople to upskill themselves? I'm not sure where I read this as well, but I'd like to maybe just hear where this came from.
Can we talk? What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about
that. No, you don't. You want to talk
I read somewhere about this as well. I'm not sure if it's from one of your posts or somewhere else, but
what did you kind of ping me about? What did you want to talk? We can talk about that maybe a bit later if we get time, because I will go off on a rant and a ramble about that.
Well,
I'm about to as well. I'm sorry,
yeah,
but no, I'm not going to. What do you want to talk about?
The other thing that I put down was like shortcuts.
That was literally one word.
Just one word. I'm very used to just putting one word topics.
Is this to kind of get me to lean into this and be like,
What is it?
what is it?
Yeah, exactly.
What is it? Come on then. What is it? Shortcuts.
Yeah, I've been thinking about shortcuts.
Taking them or not taking them, or are they bullshit or what?
Yeah. So there are shortcuts. Like, let's just admit there are shortcuts in life. Whether you take them or not, there are shortcuts, right?
We just spoke about one. Client success. It's a shortcut.
It is. It
Good
is.
catch.
Ring the register. Yeah, and where this came from was actually how this came about was when I'm like on a 230-kilometer ride and it's freaking hot out. Every time on my way back, I pass by a shortcut. It will save me the last 2 kilometers.
Oh, so every time you pass by it.
Yes, every time I pass by it.
Have you ever taken
I
it?
have. So
Okay.
that's the thing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
I have taken it multiple times, and I'm like, why am I taking this shortcut? It's only 2 kilometers further. Doesn't make. Yes, it's hot out, right? And what makes me so weak that I can't do the remaining 2 kilometers? I've already done 230, right? So.
Right.
I mean, I've been taking that shortcut multiple times, and now I make it like a point not to take the shortcut. It's tempting. It's right there. It cuts, cuts right across. And I'm thinking like, okay, really mentally resilient people will not take shortcuts.
Okay.
They will just complete the journey. I think completing the journey is not about completing the journey itself, but really we talked about micro decisions, right? At that point in time, you're taking the decision to follow through rather than take a shortcut, take the easy way out. And I think that's how this came about, really. Like thinking, like writing about shortcuts, thinking about it, and how what it does to our own kind of like mentality. Yeah.
When is it time to take the shortcut? To take that 2 kilometer shortcut?
Let's say never.
So even if you set out and your goal was 230 and you were at 230 at that point for the shortcut, even then, don't take the shortcut. I mean, is it a shortcut then, or is it just part of the route?
I mean, why take the easy way out, essentially? Like, I think for me, it's like, if I know I can do it, why take the easy way out? Yes, you might have completed, your distance goal. By the way, when I ride, I don't have a distance goal. I'm like, I ride from home, and ride all the way back home. Unless, of course, you get in a crash or whatnot, then that's a different story. But
people don't crash, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Crash is for losers.
Even if you crash, just ride, suck it up. Right back home. Right? So
to be fair, my shoe did break.
Yeah.
But it was okay. It was fine. Just clips back on. On a bigger, maybe a bigger question about quitting as well. So either quitting or taking a shortcut or knowing when it's time to call it. So whether that's in a job, are you unhappy in your job but you feel like you should keep pushing because you think it's going to get better? Whether that's on a ride, should you keep pushing or should you now turn back? And I think it's like this idea of, people call it hustle porn, or this like hustle culture, and saying this toxic mentality. It's like you've always got to be on, you've always got to keep going. What do you think about that?
Let's take a quick break and then I'll share my thoughts.
Okay. Wow.
All right, and we're back.
We are back.
So on quitting, you say?
Yes.
When to know when to quit?
When to know when to kind of throw in the towel. And that's either look for another opportunity, take that detour. I'm going to call it a detour rather than a shortcut. I suppose we'll call it what it is. It's a shortcut, whether that's a shortcut home or whatever it is. Because this idea, like, you should always be on, you should always be pushing and hustling and have side hustles, and I think this is just for a bit of context. This question is coming from in my mind I have a theory that I kind of operate on, and I kind of coined it as this the white flag theory. For myself, it's already been written about. There's loads of stuff that's out there. It's like, okay, fine, whatever, but this is for me. And what I found over time was when people are ready to quit, when they're ready to wave the white flag and be like, I'm out, I'm done, whether that's in sport or work or business, whatever it is, if you can go one more, if you can pick up the phone or close another deal or take another rejection and just keep edging your way forward, that's what starts to separate you, good call, from the pack and from being mediocre and being on your way to being very, very good. And this is this idea of this trigger point of, I'm going to quit and I'm going to turn back. 99% of people will do just that. And if you can actually start to incrementally make that decision, be like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it, that's when you can start to break away. But where does it end? Right? Do you constantly keep doing that? And if you do constantly keep doing that, are you running the risk of burnout? Are you running the risk of damaging your mental health or mental well-being? I don't have an answer for that. So that's where this comes from. When is it time? When, in your mind, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's for each person to decide when it is time to switch course, maybe. But my thoughts are, you look at the macro and micro, right? So on the macro scale, are you really quitting? Or are you just finding another way? It's not a shortcut. I mean, it could be a shortcut, but to get you to that same destination on the macro scale. On the micro scale, you might be thinking, oh, I'm quitting, but are you just trying to find a different way to get there? Because there's an obstacle in your way.
How do you start to train yourself or become self-aware of if you're just making excuses or not? Like, it was pissing it down this morning. I had a crash. It would have made sense maybe to stay at home and not go out riding. Right?
Yeah.
We went out and we rode, and it was a good ride. I really enjoyed it. But when was that the smart thing to do? Or not? So where's this balance? How do you know in yourself if you're making that excuse or it's a rational, logical, emotionally mature decision to either quit or throw in the towel?
Well, I think, like I said, it depends on person to person. But for me, at least,
tell me your thoughts. How do you know?
So going back to kind of like the Everest thing, where I quit essentially.
Saved it for another day.
I guess I saved it for another. Yeah. Knowing when to quit, like. Or really, are you just making excuses?
Right. So how did you know? How did you know today's not my day? Like, really, I've given everything I possibly got. I've emptied the tank. I've gone all in, and it's not my day.
It wasn't really not my day. I think I could have just pushed through. I mean, just looking back at it, right? Really, it came down to me deciding, like, okay, you know what? I'm making an excuse for myself.
Okay.
I make excuses. So, like, oh yeah, my watch stops automatically pauses if I go below a certain speed, and I can't keep my pace beyond that speed right now. So I should just quit. Right. But rather, actually, that's just an excuse. You could have just take a rest every lap and make sure you stay above that speed.
Right.
It was still registering, right? Why set expectations like you just need to keep doing? So I I set myself like every 4 laps, then I'll take a rest.
Mm.
But really, could you just pace yourself, like change up the strategy,
Yep.
and still complete it?
Okay.
I did not do that. At that point, I was like, yeah, it's tough to maintain above the speed. I should just quit, right? Because I can't do it. I can't maintain that. But really, you could if you wanted to.
So this is quite interesting to hear this, because when we talk about making decisions and then being finite and being like, is it time to quit?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you're right in a sense that because you're going to try it again, right? So sorry, I'm just putting blood on the table. It's just an attempt, and you go all in, and whatever it is, when you decide that you're either not going to continue, or you're going to leave a job, or you're not going to make a sale, or whatever it might be, I think, like personally, then it is the reflection time, right? As long as you make that decision, good or bad, whatever it is, but I think the trigger point here is the decision is made, then spend that time to reflect on it. How would I do it differently? What would I do again next time? So maybe this is a redundant question for me to ask in terms of how do you know? Because you don't, other than what you've been through to get to that point. And now afterwards, it's just time to reflect and see how you could get up, go again, and do things a bit differently or do things better.
Yeah, exactly. So when you mentioned about like how do you know when you're going to quit, or when you're talking about burnout, I think it comes down to that self-awareness, right? And like the reflection of, okay, is this really something that I still want to do? Like for me, I'm still going to try a freaking Everest thing again.
Exactly.
I'm not quitting, right? Because that is something that I choose to do.
Yeah.
Something I want to do. And it's tough, but hey, I'm still going to do it.
Yeah. Right?
I'm not burning out. I think burnout comes when you're actually doing something that you don't really enjoy anymore. I don't think that's quitting or giving up. That's more of like, hey, this is not me, or I know I can put my energy somewhere else that will actually bring me that drive. I feel like we all have that fire burning inside us. So Steve Schlafman.
Yes, you mentioned him.
I mentioned him in
one?
a previous episode. Oh yeah, episode 1.
Yeah.
But he wrote a post or an article about burnout versus burn down, right?
Okay.
So burn down is when really you're just not doing the stuff that you enjoy, and your flame just gets put out.
Fizzles,
yeah. And we talk about, people, where does drive come from? Where does motivation come from? Where does passion come from? Really, it's through, it's that flame, right? The task that you're doing, if you really do enjoy it, the drive automatically comes. Like, it's all internal, I feel.
Yeah.
Why do some salespeople, why are they so successful? I don't know. I've not coached or managed many salespeople, but maybe you can share, right? Is it really always that external monetary reward, right?
No.
Exactly. So, yeah, I do believe, like, if you're feeling like burnt out, is it really burned out because you're just overworking, or is it you're just working on stuff that doesn't bring you energy? So, in my self-awareness curriculum, I wrote about that there was there's a chapter about your energy, like strengths versus weaknesses.
Right.
Your strengths really are tasks that actually gives you energy.
Yeah.
And weaknesses are just tasks that just drains you. Right. So that's another way to look at it, right? Rather than what am I good at, and what am I not good at. If you're not good at something, but it brings you energy, over time you're gonna get good at it because you are gonna stick to it. You're gonna find ways to improve it because it brings you energy. I think a lot of the skills and strengths that we build, right? It's through consistency. I think consistency and execution just outweighs talent. Like I do believe in that. So if something brings you energy, you're just gonna stick with it. You can improve. So those are my thoughts.
Good thoughts. The I suppose it's a difficult one to manage as well when you're first getting in and trying to find what you enjoy doing. Because, again, we come back to this idea of ego, because we might start down a journey and be like, I'm not very good at this, I'm going to throw in the towel. But I think this is where kind of like this idea of coaching or good leadership and good management can really help bring out the best in people, because it's their job to also see the potential in the people that they work with. It's like, okay, I know you're struggling with this right now, and this is how I think we can move forward beyond this, because I see that you have the capability if we can just make these small tweaks along the way. And I think having that kind of guidance, or that other voice on your shoulder that isn't telling you you're fucking terrible, or this imposter syndrome, devil on your shoulder, whatever it is, I think having that guidance is quite important to keep you pushing forward. Because we might tell ourselves that we have these weaknesses and we're not good at it and we're terrible, and we get into this narrative of I'm never going to be good at this. And it's like this fixed and growth mindset. That's something for another time. But having that support system, and we come back to community and the conversation we had previously. Hey, let's just try doing this. Have you tried thinking about it this way? Hey, come on, I'll show you how to do this. And showing people the path, knowing they are fully capable if they can just see it for themselves. So it's an interesting one, because this idea of strengths and weaknesses, when people see the potential, I mean, I've seen potential in a number of sales folks, but there's the but. This idea of coachability kind of falls down. Hey, let me show you. Make this small tweak, and they could be on a different journey or on a different path. That's a failure on my part, because I haven't done a good job of telling that story and helping them and selling the idea that they can be really good, and unfortunately it hasn't worked out for them. They've gone on to different careers, so I do reflect on that too. But helping people and guiding people, I think that can bring that energy as well. I'm not talking about rah-rah motivation, but showing people there might be a better way. It's interesting though. How do we get here from shortcuts?
You're talking about quitting, and why some people quit and burn out. So that's how we ended up here.
What else, man? What else been on your brain?
That's literally it.
Is it?
Yeah. So while we're on this sales people topic, let's go over what you put down, like over reliance on management for salespeople to upskill themselves. Why? Why is there an over reliance on management for salespeople to upskill themselves?
I don't know, is the honest answer. So, working with different sales teams and different salespeople, there seems to be a common story around no budget for learning or courses to help upskill from a sales perspective. Like, company doesn't have any money to send me on a course. Company doesn't have any money to do X. Company doesn't have any internal sales meetings that help me upskill. So fucking what? This is one thing I really don't understand. This idea of who's responsible for your career? Like, who's responsible for the upside that you can get from commissions or bonuses or having good relationships or growing yourself? I'm like, it's great. And I'll tell you why. Because this is the common. It's very common for people to be like, well, the company's not giving me this, so I can't get any better. Cool. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to learn as much as I can, and I'm going to work until 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, and I'm going to read and do these own courses and whatever, and I'm going to pay for myself because you're not. And then when I do go on to start to be better and start to improve and start to have better relationships and better conversations with clients, and you don't, then you're going to fucking bitch and moan. Like, why is he doing so much better than me? Because I took responsibility and accountability for my own skills. Like, why would I rely on someone else for my growth? And also from sales and earnings potential. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it's difficult when you're talking to salespeople and asking them, well, if you want to get better at sales, like, how are you going about that right now? Well, the company, I was like, okay, cool. So what are you doing for yourself? It's like, well, I don't really have time because, I've got all these calls to make, I've got all these emails to send out, and these contracts to negotiate. I'm like, okay. And then what happens at the end of the day? Go out with friends. Okay, well, what about kind of, spending some time learning and doing these things that you say you want to do? Well, the company isn't paying me. Okay. And it baffles me that there's still, even now, this idea that the company should spoon feed me everything. The company, the management, the leadership should give me everything because I'm there to help them make money. Great. The more people that do that, the more most people are just going to stay mediocre. And then those that actually take control of their own learning and their own growth and their own earnings potential will go on to be awesome. I just don't fucking understand it. It's just beyond me.
When you say it's a common pattern, is it across regions, across
Yes.
age groups, millennials, Gen Zs, X, Y?
This isn't a new thing, right? I mean, Jeffrey Gittin was writing about this and talking about this for eons. Jeffrey Gittin was he wrote the Sales Bible. I read it years and years and years ago, and that kind of set me up or started me on this journey of learning about being a sales professional. So this isn't new, and it's still happening right now. But he operates out of the US, but you see it Australia, you see it Singapore, you see it Malaysia. You just do. I've seen it in companies I've worked at. I've seen it at companies I've worked with. One of my first companies I worked with, when I was cold calling, I was brought into a room and shouted at because I had too many leads. It's like, okay. And it's like, you can't possibly call all these leads. I'm like, well, I start at 6 a.m. and I'm finishing at 10 p.m. because I was working different markets. I think I spoke about this before. So yes, I can. And I do. And you can see all the notes here. It's like, well, it's not fair. I'm like, you're talking about it's not fair. It's not fair. Exactly. Because I work this. And the people that on your team are working this. What do you expect? You can't have all these leads. Okay? Well, they need to work much harder then, if they want to be able to do the things that I do and get the results that I'm getting right now. By the way, I only got fired a couple of times. I wasn't very good at my job, and then I got good at it by just learning some stuff. So it just baffles me that people aren't willing to do what they need to do to get better, and there's a reliance on a company to spoon feed them. It's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. I don't know if it's just a sales thing, or if it's. I mean, when you started riding your road bike, how did you learn how to get better? Did you rely on management to show you?
No, you just I guess that's where the flame comes in, right? If it's really something that you're passionate about and you do enjoy, you'll find a way to just you won't make any excuse to be like, shit, I'm holding myself back. I'm not gonna allow that. You feel like I have so much more to learn, and you actively, just proactively go out and seek and learn on your own, right? I don't know where over-reliance on management comes from. I don't know if it's just based on how we've conditioned people. Maybe it's a shortcut. Oh yeah, why take the long way and learning myself when I can just take the shortcut? I'm just waiting for this shortcut to appear. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it's a framing thing as well. Maybe it's not a salesperson problem. Maybe I've just spent the last few minutes going on this diatribe and monologue of just bullshit. Maybe it probably is a sales leadership, management, and hiring problem. Outlining those expectations. Be like, if you want to get to where you want to get to, I'm going to be here to support you. We're going to do coaching. We're going to do one-to-ones. I'm going to find out what inspires you. We're going to talk about your goals, personal and professional, and then we're going to talk about how you can actually get there. The stuff that you can do inside of work and the stuff that you can do on your own time in order to accelerate and get you towards those goals.
Yeah.
So, talking about drive, autonomy, mastery, purpose. So, what do we need to do better as leaders and managers to help bring this to our teams? Especially this idea of purpose as well, right? So, can you help them identify the things that they would like to achieve? Whether that's a North Star, whether that's a personal vision or a mission, I don't know. Like, some people agree with goals, some people don't agree with goals, and it's like it can become burdensome. It's like, oh my God, I've got this thing hanging over my head. But what if it's more about the process of getting towards that journey? Can you help during the one-to-ones to guide people and coach people towards that which they would like who they would want to turn into, the type of personality they want to develop? So I suppose if we have better conversations around that and guide people down that path, like you talk about your coaching thing that you like to do as well, it probably just falls on management. How do you set out those expectations up front? If you come and work here, this is what is going to be expected for your growth, not for how much money can you make for the company. I think it's a lot of framing and actually talking to people about, okay, when you do really well, the company's going to do really well. My focus is on how do I help you get better.
Yep.
The challenge is when you're working in a company and you're in a leadership or management position, and I've seen it, when you try and talk to people about, okay, their goals and what they're trying to achieve, sometimes it comes across as, this guy's just talking to me about my goals because he wants me to do more for the company. It's just not the case. The company is succeeding in generating either new clients or more revenue. It's a byproduct of actually working with the people. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. And it's lucky that we don't work together anymore, because it still rings true, man. Like, if you